We're in demand. There we go. Must be 11.
It is. Okay. All right. Welcome to Thursday. So today is our last real class, and I had a few things I wanted to cover. So first of all, today was going to be one presentation for someone who couldn't do the final week, but it turns out that person can present next week. So no presentations today. Surprise. But what I did want to remind you of is what's coming up. So next Tuesday, for people who wanted to do videos, those videos are going to be due. And there's now a place you can upload those on eClass. If it's more than 100 gigabytes, then gigabytes, megabytes?
It's megabytes.
Megabytes. Okay, yeah, 100 gigs sounded kind of large for a 10-minute video. So if it's more than 100 megabytes, then we'll work on something else. You can coordinate with Nick and myself. And then on Wednesday, you'll be able to watch those videos. And then on Thursday, we'll do the combination of live presentations and poster presentations. And then I was suggesting that as we go through for all of the videos and the live presentations, you can say at least one thing that you liked or that about the presentation of the research and one thing that could be improved. If anyone cannot make it, please let me know. So far, no one has said they couldn't. And then everything will be due at the end of Saturday. And again, if you need an extension for some good reason, please just let me know and we'll work something out. So I think we've got everyone. We have, so what is that? 7 groups are going to be submitting their videos. And then 5 groups will be doing live. So what I was thinking is first, make sure to watch the videos before class. And then I was going to go do the 5 live talks first. So each of those, again, is going to be 10 to 20 minutes. So that's at most 100 minutes. And we need to make sure to take breaks because otherwise that's going to be a little intense. And then after we go through these presentations, and the people who are doing the live presentations should probably coordinate on who's going when. It'd probably be better to group by topic, but it's totally up to you. But then after the live presentations and Q&A, then we can go to the poster presentations. So I was trying to figure out how to do this. So for those of you who have not been to a conference before, most conferences have poster sessions, and for me, it's one of the highlights. So these people may have had a talk or not, but then they go and get to present their work in a much smaller, more personal setting. So for all of these posters, you will have seen the videos. And then you've got the chance to actually ask some questions, propose some new ideas, get clarification, that kind of thing. So for the people who made the videos, I'm calling it a poster presentation. You don't actually have to make a poster. If you did have some slides or some figures that you used in your video that you could bring up during the discussion, that would be cool. But it's really up to you. Your goal is to interact with people and tell them more about the cool stuff you did and get suggestions. So what I was thinking of doing is having kind of 2 sessions. So we'd have of these, of the people who did the videos, we'd have like half of them go in the first session and then half of them go in the second session. So in the first session, in each session, you'd have 3 or 4 posters you could go to and have something like 20 minutes. And it will be completely up to you whether you want to go to one poster for 20 minutes or if you want to hit each one for 5 minutes. And that's the other thing I like about the poster session is you can go and look at a poster Oh yeah, that's nice. Okay, I'm done with you now because actually I don't really care about this. So having that flexibility to decide how much time you're going to invest is kind of nice, I think. Now, the one drawback is if you're presenting a poster in one of the sessions, it's going to be hard for you to see the other ones. But I think that's an okay trade-off. It just means that, so for instance, Lehao would not be able to go to Laura's poster, but he would still be able to see her video and could always ask questions over Discord or email, something like that. So that's what I'm going to propose. Does anyone see any problems with this or have alternative suggestions? Okay. Well, if you think of something or if this doesn't work for you, please do let me know. And we should be, maybe this is being overly optimistic, but I think it's going to be fun. This is going to be, you guys are doing some awesome stuff. This is a chance to tell other people about why your stuff was awesome. And and is this the kind of thing that you might be interested in carrying forward? Do you think it's actually going to pay off into something interesting that could be published, or is this just a cool class project? Because both are completely fine. And then when they're thinking about these videos and talks, I wasn't really sure, because you could think of, well, I'm going to give make a 10-minute video and it's going to be something that could be accessible to any graduate student in computer science. Or it could be, I'm going to make a 10-minute talk that's targeted at people in this class, and they've already heard me talk a little bit about it before. So I don't need to go through all the details really carefully. I just need to remind them what I've already told them about. And I kind of decided either would be fine. I think it might help if at the beginning of your presentation or your video, you clarified who you were talking to and what kind of background are you assuming. So are you assuming that they know what reinforcement learning is? Are you assuming that they know what interactive machine learning is? So if you just had a quick disclaimer about that, that would probably help people when they're deciding for people outside the class, how they're seeing these videos. Oh, which reminds me, I would really like to make these available kind of as advertisements for the next time I run this class. But if you would prefer not to, please let me know. I do not want to use your videos if you don't want me to. So just shoot me an email or Discord, and I'm happy to do that. Questions about this? Okay, so I wanted to take a little bit of time and say, in August, when I was making the syllabus, which still feels about 2 months ago, I had these 4 objectives. So the first one was for you all to be able to think and talk about and understand and explain human AI interaction, and particularly human machine learning interaction. And so that's really been one of the core goals. So hopefully you feel like after this class, you could go out and have an informed discussion, have informed opinions on this. What we're really building up to is these studies that we're going to be presenting next week. We definitely have been doing this reading and discussing research, active research. And for some of you who haven't done a whole lot of research before, hopefully that was useful. We did get a little bit of an experience presenting, and again, we'll be doing that next week. And I personally think presenting is really important, just like writing. Especially computer science undergrads don't usually enjoy presenting and definitely don't enjoy writing. But I think I currently spend a whole lot of my life writing. And I believe whatever you do after you get your CS degree, you're going to be having to do some written communication. So being able to convey your ideas clearly, I think, is a useful skill to have. Hopefully this class has provided you some extra practice there. And then, of course, thinking about what can we do that's novel. Because as a graduate student, that's a lot of what you're thinking about. What can I do that somebody hasn't done before? How can I go take a risk? I don't know whether it's going to work or not, but maybe I can find something cool. So as I saw it, I kind of saw 4-ish themes that we covered this semester. So first, there was just thinking about how humans and AIs get along. So that started with Corey, but we had a number of different people kind of talk about that. Then there were the two contexts, supervised or unsupervised learning, and then reinforcement learning. And then towards the end, we got into teaming, which was more kind of coming back to thinking about how we can do more things, how human AI teams can can accomplish tasks better or different tasks than if it was just a human or just an AI. So I was hoping to get some feedback. Some of the things I did were a little different than what I've done in the past. So the first thing I did is asked you on Discord to give feedback on the paper presentations. And I was wondering if people found that kind of feedback useful. I don't have a sense as a graduate student at U of A, do you give talks often and get feedback from 15 people regularly, or was this a relatively novel thing?
From my experience, you only really get feedback from the prof, never from like the other students in the class, which I thought it was useful hearing everybody's feedback, and more feedback's always good.
More feedback is good as long as it's useful.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I give a fair amount of presentations, but it's rare to receive feedback from your peers. So I thought it was nice.
Oh, okay, cool.
I've taken one course where there were peer feedback was like an integral part of it. I thought it was really useful, not only because it's always nice to have like fresh eyes on what you're working on, but also the thing I found most useful is being trained on how to give peer feedback. I think was the best part. So I
Cool.
like.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I thought peer
Go ahead.
comments were good, but the way in which we gave them was maybe a bit messy, because you would be making comments to the previous video while the next video was starting. So I always felt like I missed the first 3 or 4 slides.
Awesome. Good point.
I have had lots of feedback for presentations, but I've never had you have to say something you liked and you have to say something to improve, which was actually good. Like, it's good to see that many things to improve and force people to think about that.
Well, because one of the dangers is, one of the failure modes is, oh yeah, Matt, that was great. Good job. No, I need you to tell, I know I'm not perfect. I need you to tell me something I can improve. So I'm glad you liked that. Well, so let me transition now. So it sounds like people seem to like the feedback on the presentations. What I'd never done before is try to get peer feedback on these project reports. So in this class, we have a wide range of past experience. So someone who has written and published multiple papers is going to formulate a report differently than someone who has not successfully published before. They just have different backgrounds and experiences. So I was hoping that this kind of peer commenting could be useful. The problem is it is obviously work for everyone because you've got to go through the papers. And I wasn't sure how useful it was ideally it would be useful for the person getting the feedback, but also again, making the reader think through and think about how they could give feedback and, oh, does any of this apply to me? So I'd also be interested in thinking or hearing from you about, was this feedback on the projects useful?
Perhaps a silly question, but where do we get the peer feedback? I don't think I've seen any peer feedback for the written stuff.
Hager sent it out a few days ago, I thought. I'm seeing. Oh, I'm seeing some nods. Okay.
Yeah, by email, I think it was.
Okay. So, Graham, if you don't see it in your email, please let me know, and we'll get it to you straight away.
Okay, sure thing.
So, for someone who did receive their feedback, the expressions look much less enthusiastic than the presentation feedback.
I thought it was useful. Like there's some stuff that was iffy in the draft report that I think you pointed out about like what the ZPD is and stuff like that. And I thought like David and I had clarified it, but some of the peer feedback we got was like, no, it's still not clear. So it pointed out that there's still work to be done there, which is good.
Yeah, I think feedback from peers is actually super helpful because like whereas coming from a professor, they have a lot more domain knowledge, they understand the background a lot better, so they can pick up, topics that you're talking about in your paper quite a bit faster. Whereas from peers, if they're slightly more unfamiliar with their work, it really lets you, it really gives you a more clear idea of the kind of audience that you actually might want for your paper, at the general level. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point, because when you submit a paper to a conference, it's always good practice to have someone who's not in your research group read the paper first, because in a particular setting, you have all these terms and ideas that you use all the time, and then as soon as you go outside of that circle, you realize, wait, I haven't been explaining myself.
I think it especially helps with keeping your paper self-contained when you're presenting to people that are kind of new. Because like you said, with people that are familiar with the topic, they'll just be like, oh, you referenced the paper. Oh yeah, like I completed that paper, blah, 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 whatever. But then if someone new comes in and sees the paper and, doesn't understand something because they don't understand the I guess, what you expect to be the relevant background knowledge, there's that gap there, and that you should be filling if you want your paper to be self-contained.
I kind of feel like the peer comments also kind of depend on how much effort you put into the initial draft as well. Like somebody who put a lot of time and has made a lot of progress will probably get more out of the experience, whereas somebody who's maybe, for whatever reason, busy with other courses or this and that, or still having to flesh it out, it's probably not as useful. So like, it is kind of, I guess, a little bit also on the person who wrote the draft, how much they'll get out of it. But
yeah. And I've been kind of saying, you should really get this done early. You should really get this done early and polished. And I'm kind of a hypocrite because right now I am way behind on a draft of a grant proposal, and it should have been done like a week ago. So I can't complain too much for people doing it last minute, but you're absolutely right that if the more developed the draft was, probably the more useful. So maybe if I did this again, maybe I could make that more explicit that, I encourage you to do it early because you will get better feedback. Matt will be able to give you better feedback. But of course, life happens. So if it needs to be last minute, that just means you're getting a little riskier on the final product. So towards that end, the actual thing isn't due until a week from Saturday. So please do feel to ping me. I'm happy to chat with you. I'm happy to chat over email. I'm happy to read specific sections of the paper to make sure they make sense. So I would like this to be more of a collaborative, let's put together something cool rather than I'm doing something and then Matt's going to judge me. But I know that's kind of hard. Did anyone feel like they got something out of writing comments on somebody else's project? Or is that because I know it, at least when I was in grad school, it was not that common to give feedback on papers until you were relatively senior.
I far prefer giving written comments to like another written thing than the written comments to a live presentation. Because I think when you're reviewing something that's already written down, then you have time to mull it over yourself. And if you feel like you didn't understand something, you can easily go back and check it and Google things. It feels like you can give better feedback on the project reports compared to the presentations, I think.
You can definitely give better feedback on the science because the talk is ephemeral. It's short. A lot of it is presentation, whereas you're right, with a written draft, you've got time to think about stuff. You can Google stuff. You can reread things, and then I think I agree with you that you can give much more detailed feedback on the content.
And I did check. I don't believe my group got an email for peer feedback.
Okay, then I will look at that right after the class. Then I guess the other thing is I've done this draft before, and again with varying success because people had different ideas of what a first draft looked like. Do you think this process was useful for you? If I ran this class again, do you think having a deadline for a draft where you get feedback before the final submission, do you think that's something that I should do again, or would you change things differently?
I 100% think it was a good idea, because if this wasn't the case, I'm sure I would just be working on other courses and just allowing more and more of this to pile up. And so any defense against my procrastination is appreciated.
Good point.
I think a draft is definitely always useful. I think it would have been more useful if there was more like explicit expectations around it, because especially with like coming from, you know, I'm a bit from a different sub-discipline. So there was, I have a specific understanding of what a paper should look like. And I think for the most part, it fell within that, but it easily could not have.
No, that's a great point. And having a more clear rubric, I think, would help. I know some of the project drafts were more in the medical area, so that was more challenging for me because those papers didn't look like everything I was used to. But that's fine. And you know, if someone had submitted something completely off base, then the draft would definitely catch that. But I think no one ran afoul of that.
I guess one thing I was kind of thinking based on what's been said so far is maybe you could like break down the drafting further. Like, you know, presumably we have to do some like readings about related work or whatever. And so maybe having a draft, you know, to kind of make sure everyone at least on paper has hypothetically, you know, set a base that they understand like the area that they're trying to do their research on. And then having, you know, draft 2, draft 3 might be better. And then, you know, it's not like you have to write the whole quote unquote paper in the first draft, and then you break it down the process a little bit, but I don't know, that could also be, yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I definitely agree, because I kind of was thinking about it with in the peer review like rubric guiding document thing. One of the questions was like, what was the method that they used, and does this seem sound? I think by that point that you're like too late in asking that question, because in theory you've already done it all. So I think breaking it down, where like, for example, that question is asked much earlier, but like to catch that kind of thing would be more useful.
No, that's a great point, because we had those draft hypotheses that you had to submit, but I could have gone much more into depth there, and not just for the hypothesis. Also, what are 3 papers you're reading for background? What is the baseline or 2 you're going to compare against? How are you going to make that comparison? What are the metrics? And if we had all of that written down a month and a half ago, that might have made things easier.
I also think that draft hypothesis was super useful, but it would have been helpful a week or 2 weeks or maybe even 3 weeks earlier, like to have it due earlier. It would have just straight up given me more time to work on getting results.
Yeah, I thought I was worried that I was putting it too early, because you want to balance, well, making sure the students have enough time, but also you want them to get a bunch of content before they commit to something. And maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. Maybe I need to push that commitment earlier in the semester.
Yeah, I know it is a balance, because I know my project was definitely inspired by one of the lectures. So sorry, I don't have a good solution for that.
And then the last thing I wanted to mention, were there any things like, oh man, I can't believe Matt never brought up this topic, or wow, e-class is super broken, we should have used something else. Do you have any suggestions about like either the kind of content we should have covered, or the ways we covered that content, and either stylistically or in terms of technology?
I felt like there were too many technologies, because sometimes there'd be things updated on Discord, then eClass would say something else, or yeah, just like maybe consolidating into a single one. I mean, I'm new to U Alberta and I don't really have any attachment to it, but I thought eClass, I think for the most part should contain like all the info, but I know not everybody prefers that. Or like if you're going to continue to use Discord, if there's like an announcement, pinning them so it's easy to find them, so we don't have to scroll through all of the things. Assuming you want to stick to how you have it currently.
Or even having an announcements channel, something like that.
Yeah, that would be another way, I think.
Awesome, thank you.
E-class is hot garbage, in my opinion, but it's also kind of the main way that all other courses are. So especially if you have a student that's in multiple classes, all of their other stuff is already going to be on e-class. So I think certainly keeping e-class as one of the things is a good idea.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of again, my first semester, that was kind of the impression I got, that e-class should be able to do all of this, but it doesn't do a good job. But since that's what most people are familiar with, it probably should be at least part of the solution, if not everything. Oh, I think someone is in the chat. Sorry, I missed that. Yeah, if I post important things on Discord, they can get lost. So yeah, so having an announcements channel, always doing announcements in Discord and email, or Discord and eClass, something like that, I think that would help. Also, I mean, just many of the announcements were, oh shoot, Matt forgot about this. You need to know this. So definitely being a bit more on top of things and understanding more about the class flow will definitely make things easier in the future. Any other comments before we go on? Awesome. So here's the rubric we were talking about with the paper, and I'm trying to figure out how much I'm actually going to rely on this. So let me let's see. I'm screen sharing. I record. Pause. And I'm still live though. How do I stop being live?